ACCC Chairman Rod Sims. Rod Sims, thanks very much for your time. Talk us through the findings in this latest report when it comes to Google and the issue of this advertising question. What are in simple terms, what are the fundamental findings of what this report has found?
The findings of the report are firstly that it's a very important market. Digital display advertising is growing. It matters a lot to those who own websites and those who want to advertise. Secondly, Google is in a remarkably dominant position. It's by far the largest player at each part of the supply chain. Thirdly, we've got issues in relation to a lack of competition, partly because of Google's dominance, but also because of some of the things they do. And lastly, this is a market that doesn't have much transparency at all. It's often hard to know what price you're paying and what service you're actually getting. I mean, how effective the ad is. So, really important market, a lot of problems.
Okay, so it is an important market. We're seeing the disruption that such a massive organisation has had in our space within the media. How do you try and level the playing field for advertising more broadly then?
Look, it's a tricky issue. Google has such dominance because it's got so much data. Obviously, Google is essentially in the data gathering business. That's how it makes money. That's what it does. So it's got a lot of data. It's restricting the use of other people getting hold of data. And it's done a lot of acquisitions to buy up most of the major ad tech providers, the people who've got the technology. So it's in a remarkably strong position. The options for dealing with it are what we're going to turn our mind to now. They range from things such as what the Europeans and the British announced late last year they were thinking about, which is upfront rules which limit self-preferencing behaviour, which rule out conflicts of interest, which are both big issues in this market. So that would be, I guess, regulation. Then there's ideas to make sure that everyone's got the tools to be able to track ads through the chain so that you know how much you're paying and you know how useful the ad is. Again, that's a regulatory change, but one which would really have to be driven by industry. And lastly, you've got rules around data portability and interoperability so that Google's data advantage is not as large as it is now. So much to contemplate. I guess the problems are really clear. Some of the solutions are pretty tricky.
And what are the concerns in relation to an organisation like Google and the threats that they will, in relation to the other media laws, that they'll just simply walk? Is that a concern, and how much is this sort of approach being seen as a world first?
Look, I wasn't surprised that Google threatened to close search in Australia with the Media Bargaining Code being introduced. Obviously, it's a code they don't want, so they have to play all the cards they can. I mean, when you have big negotiations, you often find a bit of brinkmanship. That said, they may well do it. I just don't know. I'm not surprised they've threatened it. Whether they'll do it or not, I seriously, honestly don't know. I guess the issue is how much you can let your public policy be determined by companies or governments. That's an issue. So how big a concern is it? Well, obviously, if Google were to go, and I'm hoping there'll be deals done and compromises made so that doesn't happen. But if it does happen, then I guess people will have to look for other search engines, and they do exist. So it's a big call. There's big implications for Australia if they close down search, but there's big implications for Google if they allow their competitors a leg up through vacating the search arena as they're threatening to do.
Indeed. So just finally, do you feel that with the various investigations Australia is undertaking that we can negotiate a balanced landscape, both in terms of advertising but media more broadly when it comes to the giants?
Yes, I think we can. I mean, we're looking at other countries as well. We're working with other countries. Other countries, as I mentioned earlier, are thinking about doing things in relation to advertising technology. On the media bargaining code, obviously, we are doing things which are probably a bit out in front of others. But I think the pressure is growing elsewhere as well. Google's been forced to, by legislation in France, that actually requires them to pay for snippets in search. That legislation has forced them to do deals in France. So I think there's a big momentum building to deal with these issues. So one way or another, I'm confident we'll get there, but obviously I really, only Google knows whether they'll carry through, whether they'll continue to play hardball and carry through on that threat.
ACCC Chairman Rod Sims, thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. I think I said former a bit earlier, but it was a mistake and use of words. Thank you, Rod. Appreciate it.